Welcome to The Wedding Biz with Andy Kushner, the show about the global wedding business and your backstage pass to the happily ever after world of professional dream makers.
I gave you my heart on a silver platter, 'cause you made my dreams come true. It won't crack, baby.
Hey everyone, it's Andy Kushner, host of The Wedding Biz. I am so excited today for several reasons. First of all, our listenership is growing dramatically, which is certainly in part due to you, our listeners, who are sharing the show with friends and colleagues. So I thank you so much for doing that and helping us build this wonderful community. Also, I suggest that you subscribe, which is free, on your podcast app or on our website at theweddingbiz.com. And I'm particularly excited because next week is our 1-year anniversary, and we are going to honor that and celebrate it and give more tips and inspiration by creating an anniversary show. That will be on the 14th, next Monday. And we're going to include many surprises, including comments by previous guests. And you're also going to get to meet my team, marketing director Melissa Fancy, and editor and wonderful podcast consultant Christy Hausler. And we are going to go over many of the most exciting moments of the show and talk about where we're going. And again, we're going to provide some additional advice, tips, inspiration. It's going to really be a great show. A lot of fun. So follow us on Instagram at Wedding Biz Show. And if you direct message us with your experience of the show and how it's helped you, we are going to be choosing a couple to read during our show next week. So let's move on to today's guest, who is David Tutera. This is such an elucidating interview. It was so exciting. David reveals many stories, many tips and advice that he has not talked about anywhere else. And we talk about so many topics, including how to sustain a career. And he talks about how he feels that you have to reinvent yourself by expanding your vision and allowing yourself to do new things like he has done with his event symposium and many other things that he does. He also talks about how we have to love what we do for our clients and be equally satisfied in the process. And it'll be so much fun to learn, I certainly didn't know this, what his family business was. It's going to really be a big surprise, and it really affects who he is. It's really fascinating. David is also wonderfully giving and vulnerable and talks about what his biggest fears are and how he can use knowing them in order to help his business. We also discuss price versus value. Obviously, very important topic to all of us in the business, and a sensitive one at that. And following the interview of David, tune into our add-on episode, which we just started doing last week, called The Next Level. We started it last week with my interview of Lisa Gooder, Executive Director of Bride's Editorial, and we're doing it right after this episode today with David Tutera, in which my marketing director and esteemed wedding consultant, Melissa Fancy, she is my co-host, and we briefly discuss each episode from now on and help translate into tactical strategies that you can use to bring your business to the next level. Hence the name of this series, The Next Level. And if you sign up for our email list via our website, theweddingbiz.com, you will receive documents for each Next Level episode that summarizes what we spoke about and gives more tips and advice that you can use. And now, without any further ado, enjoy my conversation with David Tutera. So David, you really need no introduction. However, I'm going to do one anyway. You are a wedding and entertainment expert, tremendously successful in the lifestyle arena and designing spectacular events and transforming them into a lifestyle. Your client list includes many celebrity and pro athletes' weddings, events for Jennifer Lopez, Jewel, Matthew McConaughey, Lil' Kim, the official post-Grammy parties in New York City, Elton John, Barbara Walters, the Rolling Stones, Nancy Reagan, Prince Charles, the White House, Kenneth Cole, Tommy Hilfiger, the Kennedy Center, as well as countless film premieres and celebrity parties for royalty, politicians, and socialites. You've designed events for several charities. You've made guest appearances on numerous television shows, including Today, Good Morning America, The View, Rachel Ray, Wendy Williams, and many more. Your work has appeared in numerous major and popular publications. You have at least 7 books out that I'm aware of. And in a bit, we'll talk, because if I keep doing this, Dave, listing your accomplishments, we'll have no time for you. So later, we're going to talk about your TV shows, extensive product lines, your own event planning symposium. I am exhausted listening this out, and you're still relatively young. So it's like, seriously, how do you have such long-term sustained energy, success? I mean, we're going to get into details, but let alone just maintaining all of this. I mean, when I list this, like, what are you thinking? When I'm listing this out, what's in your mind?
I'm exhausted.
You are too.
No, thank you for, by the way, mentioning all of that. It's a lot. I think the being able to sustain a career is being able to reinvent yourself.
Yes.
And I do find that in any industry, specifically the industry of creating events, many people get very burned out. They get exhausted. They get tired. They get to a place where they just don't know how they can continue doing anything creative.
Yeah.
But I have managed to always not change my career, but expand my vision and allow myself to do new things that I have not done before. For example, like the event symposium is new to me, and it's been successful, and it's been a way to communicate with those in the industry that are new or in the industry for a while that need to refresh themselves. And I think that's really important for all of us. I mean, it's important for you, for me, for anyone listening, that we have to love what we do. We don't have to love the person that we do it for. I think we get caught up in like, I got to love my client. We have to love what we do for our clients.
Yeah, take care of the core for ourselves.
Absolutely. We have to be equally gratified.
Yeah.
As much as the client and the consumer, which is the guests. So I've done a lot. I am doing a lot. I'm doing more in the future. I don't consider myself young in the business. Thank you. But I do find that this is an evolving industry.
Yes. And so we need to personally evolve and have our businesses evolve.
We do, and a lot of people don't do that. I'm fascinated because I speak all over the world, and I'm fascinated when I step into our industry and talk to vendors, to professionals, that some people really are still working in the world of 20 years ago in the industry, and they haven't evolved.
Yeah.
And I don't know why that is, because we have the resources to evolve. I don't know if it's that they just don't understand how to make themselves new and fresh and exciting and memorable and creative and stand out amongst the clutter.
But I think too that there's a scary element to it too. Maybe there's a fear. I keep thinking in terms of music. I think immediately of Madonna in terms of how often she's reinvented herself.
Yes, good analogy.
Right? Over and over and over and over again. And there's many people, but, and I would guess that for her, there isn't really a fear about that or an anxiety. It's just like, that's what you do. But I think maybe, I don't know. I think maybe for some people, yeah, it's like scary.
It might be though that, let's talk about Madonna for a second. She may have always been fearful of losing that position in her business, of being on top and, the reinventing of yourself as she did so beautifully. And Lady Gaga is a mirror, mimicked version of Madonna, that reinventing allows you to stand amongst the crowd as someone that's, whether above or below, is standing outside and being unique. It's a good way for us to look at, it's a good way for anyone to look at how do you stand amongst everybody else and really be different and memorable. And one of the things I've always said, and I always believed that if somebody walks into an event that I produced or designed and says, oh my gosh, this has been the most incredible experience, who did it? As opposed to walking and going, this must be a David Tutera event.
Right.
That means I've really become stale.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people that do that. So it's reinventing and reforecasting and being a little bit more trend forward in our business.
Yeah. I would love to go back in time and kind of find out how this began for you. I mean, even before that spark of passion in this industry, where are you from, first of all?
I'm from Portchester, New York. So I am literally 26 miles due north of New York City.
Okay. So close enough to be able to get the influence and go there and hang.
But far enough that people thought the city was China.
Oh, geez.
Like it literally was so far. But at a young age, I started going into the city at like 14, 15, 16 years old and wanting to go to the theater and wanting to, do things outside of the small town that I was from. And Portchester's, a town of maybe then 25,000 people.
So very suburban.
Yeah, super suburban. And, New York was like you go there once a year, maybe during Christmas to the Radio City show.
Right.
But I went all the time. And my parents let me, and it allowed me to expand my visual creativity. And I think that's what gave me the ambition to do something different.
But to go back for a moment, so even before you're 14, what did your parents do?
Well, my mom was a stay-at-home mom.
Okay.
Who then later became my assistant for 16 years.
I remember in your office meeting her.
Yeah, she's amazing. My dad, my grandfather, my father, and currently my brother, all three of them ran the business of the family business, which was the funeral business.
I didn't know this.
Yes. So I grew up in the world of
Go ahead.
world
I'm wondering
of
how
funerals.
you say
I was going to say the world
of death. I know.
which is really the truth. And still, my father still runs the funeral home.
Oh, really?
My brother works with him.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
but here's the thing. How do you think? I'm just thinking you're growing up, and I say this all the time, but it's true. This is all you know, right? You're in this household. This is what's going on. How do you think that affected you and your outlook? Not necessarily in your business today, but just, the core of who you are. It had to have some kind of an effect.
Oh, it still does. For me, I mean, if we're going to go down that road, which I'm happy to.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have the ability to embrace death. It isn't real to me.
Okay.
Which is interesting because if you think about it, I lived in it every single day, 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
My father getting up in the middle of the night, having to go pick up someone that's passed away in their home, or, he speaking in the home about a funeral or the planning and the preparation of people's passing. It was an odd, and still is for me, energy. And my other grandfather, my mom's side of the family, owned a very successful flower shop.
Okay.
So I would work on the weekends for my other grandfather in the floral business. And then as I got older, after the age of 16, I started working for my other grandfather with my father, and I was a pallbearer at weddings. I mean, not weddings. See, I just slept at funerals.
You mean when they just didn't have enough people, you'd step now. And how old were you when you were doing this?
I was like 16, 17, 18.
Whoa.
And I would show up and I would ask my father, I'll never forget this, and I haven't talked about it in a long time. I'd say, Dad, so listen, who passed away? Like, who's in the casket that I'm carrying?
Okay, interesting.
And he wouldn't really tell me because there wasn't much to share other than the person in the casket was a male or female. And I asked the age. I wanted to know more. And as I was doing these on the weekends and making a little bit of money, I started crying during the funerals because I felt the emotion of
the people around.
the people there. And I said, Dad, I can't do this. I emotionally cannot handle this. And that was, he wanted me to get into business. I'm trying
to picture this 16-year-old boy, who's not even connected to the crowd.
It was way too much.
This might be a show right there.
Yeah. The pallbearer. That's the title.
The pallbearer.
Actually, that's a pretty good idea.
Wow. So how do you think that it's carried through to today? I mean, you said that you don't really embrace death. Is that what you said earlier?
I don't have a conception of death. It doesn't feel to me final. It's the oddest thing. And you would think of all the people that you know who's been around it as much as I have since a kid. My grandparents lived in the funeral home, so I had to walk in the funeral home.
Oh no!
Past the caskets, past the body that may be in the casket.
Come on, David.
I swear to God,
this is like 6 feet under.
Yes,
the show.
No, our life is 6 feet under. I said, Dad, you ever watch 6 Feet Under on HBO? He goes, that's dysfunctional. It's nothing about that's true. I said, Dad, it's like they wrote it about our family.
Great. This is funny. Yeah. My God. Well, okay. So then even before you go to New York, coming back to the business part, you're working in the floral shop. So you're doing that. So did you even think back then, ooh, like for me, music, I knew at 9 that that's it for me. I knew. So, or even 7 really. Did you know when you were in the floral shop that, whoa, this is something that really grabs me?
No, I always knew I wanted to do something big and different. That I always knew. What it was, I had no idea. So when I graduated high school, I went to Fordham University in New York City.
Sure.
My goal and my path was to become a lawyer.
Come on.
Yeah. And about a year and a half into Fordham University, I realized that I wasn't the right person for college.
Okay.
And I took a leave of absence. It's been very long.
Haven't been back?
I haven't gone back.
Do they know?
I mean, I just couldn't do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I spent more time taking professors up to the grievance committee because I didn't like either the way they were teaching their philosophy, or one of my psychology professor I thought was a homophobe. Yeah. So I took him up against the board. Jeez. I mean, I was spending more time going after the teachers and learning from them.
David, but that's interesting too, that you had it in you to even have the courage to do that. I mean, that's cool. I like that.
I've never had fear. That's the one thing I always felt I was given or was raised to not have.
Yeah.
And I think because of the lack of fear, it gave me the ability to have the confidence to make decisions like going into
and
city,
trust
going
your
to Fordham,
gut and all of that,
leaving
right?
for him. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So when I had left Fordham, I had to do something. And I wound up doing singing telegrams for a couple months for a company.
I would love to see some pictures.
The costumes I wore, the ridiculous things I did. But this is how I got into the industry. I was offered to buy this little company by this woman who was leaving to go to Boca Raton, Florida to retire.
Okay.
And I bought the company for $12,000, borrowed it from my grandfather who owned the flower shop.
How old were you at this time?
I was 19.
Wow. Okay.
Ran it out of my bedroom in my parents' home.
Yeah.
6 months later, realized I was doing really well, and I rented a retail space in Larchmont, New York, right next to the movie theater. Started my business because a woman who wanted to create the bar mitzvah for her son, decorated like the window that I had displayed, came in and said, "Would you decorate my kid's bar mitzvah like that?" And I was introduced to the world of events.
That's crazy. Wow. So when did you get to the point of starting to do weddings?
Well, the first party I did was 1986. And it was the bar mitzvah. The second party I did was a wedding. Accidentally.
So you mean someone came up to you?
Somebody came in and said, "Would you do the window, a wedding for my daughter's wedding in," God, I'll remember this. It was in Pelham, New York.
And you're like, what, 20 or something like that?
I was 19, 20 years old.
My God. And so if you
I didn't know what I was doing.
And I know you're not bar mitzvah, you're not Jewish. So
no, I didn't even know what a bar mitzvah was. I had
wondering.
to call one Jewish person I knew and said, "What the hell's a bar mitzvah?"
Yeah. So and I guess same thing with a wedding. You might have been to weddings, but it's like, how did you approach, like, I'm now handling the wedding?
My grandfather helped me because he did weddings at his flower shop.
Okay.
So, and then for the first, I would say 8 years of my business, all I did was the decor. Flowers, design. I never planned.
Well, which is when I met you, because it was in Washington, D.C. I don't know when, late 90s or something like that, early 2000s. Yeah, you were brought in to do decor for a billionaire's bar mitzvah.
Correct.
And I remember seeing it and just like, oh my God, I've never seen anything like this. That was my first impression. So that's what you were doing kind of on a regular basis at first.
Yes.
So that's interesting. So then when did the planning aspect come into it?
When I realized the planners I was working for had no idea what they were doing. And I was working for a lot of planners in Washington, D.C. and a lot of planners in New York City, all which I was very grateful for because they were kind of like my teachers. And I knew I was really good at design, but I also knew I could be really good at planning. And having watched the hysterical situations they were in, because they're very dramatic, overwhelmed, and they always seem like it was their first event. Meanwhile, it might have been their 100th event.
Right.
And I realized there was no sense of calmness, confidence, and this ability to listen to clients. And I realized I need to plan and design. And I cut my throat off when I did that because no New York or DC planner is going to hire me if I'm planning.
Right. Oh, right. The moment you make that move, no one's going to hire you.
Yeah. So I went through about 4 years of technically restarting my business because I was dependent on them.
Wow. So you must have taken a big dip in income.
Major dip.
And again, the whole fear factor, I'm just picturing you probably were just so driven. Like, or did you have a rough time during that time?
New York City, DC cut me off at the hip. That was it.
Okay.
I mean, DC is brutal.
Yeah.
I mean, they just cut you right off.
Yeah.
New York, they were fearful of me because I was now an immediate competitor. But traditionally, and you know this as well as I do, traditionally, the world of planners in cities like New York City, Los Angeles, DC are older women.
Yes.
I mean, that's just a fact.
For the most part.
Was then, now it's probably different.
Getting a lot younger now. But,
yeah.
But anyway.
So they didn't want, first of all, they didn't want a guy. They certainly didn't want a guy that was a designer. Someone that was a guy designer and younger coming in. And it was basically just starting all over.
So you just basically, same thing as earlier, people just started to see your work and ask you, and things built and built and built. How about when you started to break in? Because even before I met you, I believe you had already done things like Elton John and some royal stuff. How did you break so soon into that realm? I mean, I know you did everything, but it also included super high level stuff. What was the first one and how did that come about?
There were two pivotal dates. There was the date of 1994, the year I should say, when I got a phone call from the St. James Palace in England to do an event for Prince Charles at the Beverly Hills Hotel.
Oh my God.
And I was referred to them via an event that I had designed for a very, very, very high-end client in Beverly Hills.
Okay.
So that was sort of my entree into the echelon of jumping way up.
Yeah.
Clientele-wise, not budget-wise, but clientele-wise.
Yes.
And then so from 94 to 98, I was now infused in this world for just the design aspect. In 98, I was reached out by two predominant players, one being the Grammys, which was corporate in 98, and the second one was Nancy Reagan for a social event.
Okay.
Both happened in 98. From that point forward, you sort of use your calling card. You use those events.
Sure.
And then you kind of begin to open up different doors.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, absolutely. You got to use kind of the success of what you've had, and that opens a lot of doors. Why not? Sure.
Yes.
And it seems also that you've been really good at marketing yourself as well. Can you say something about that?
Oh, gosh. I realized, so as I expanded my career, so that was 98 we just talked about. In 2000, I decided, I was like, I need to write a book. So I wrote my first book, and it was published by Simon & Schuster. And when that book hit the stands, that was the middle of 2001.
And what was this about?
It was called A Passion for Parties.
Okay.
So it was a book basically on all different types of celebrations, and it always infused tips and things on how to create fabulous events.
Okay.
And I got the phone call to promote the book on The View on ABC.
Wow. This is your first time on a big show?
This is my very first time.
Wow. And The View?
And live television.
Oh my God. Okay.
Yes. And I was asked to create 5 different specialty drinks. I'm not a bartender, by the way. 5 specialty drinks for the 5 hosts.
Yeah.
As I stood in the middle on the set live,
right,
as they talk to you and basically go off, script.
Yeah.
And you're making 5 drinks, and you've got like 4.5, 5 minutes to do it. And I practiced at home every night.
Yeah, and also, so it's like muscle memory, right? So you
it's
can
crazy.
Pay attention. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I did it, and I did it with perfection.
Yeah.
And then I kept going on for 5 years as an entertaining expert on The View, which really kind of launched my television career.
Yeah.
And then from there, at the time, Bill Getty was the executive producer and creator with Barbara Walters of The View.
Okay.
And he sought me out, and he created my very own first television show, which was produced by him, and it aired on the Discovery Channel.
What was the name of that?
That was called The Party Planner.
Ah, okay. And how long did you do that?
That was a daily show.
Whoa.
For 63 episodes,
David,
that we shot in like 9 months, 10 months.
Oh my God. Now, did you take a break from, well, you must have had stuff on the books still.
I was doing everything at one time.
So you're working like 20 hours a day.
At the end of that filming of that first show, I promised myself I'd never do television again because I thought I was physically going to die.
Yeah.
I was mentally, physically exhausted, doing too much, did not have a life other than all work. And the show didn't get picked up for a second season, so it failed.
Yeah.
And I promised myself that I was going to go back and just focus on parties. That didn't work out, by the way.
But is it really a quote unquote failure? I don't believe in that word. I mean, even though, yes, it didn't get picked up, I'm trying to imagine what you learned after 63 episodes that you could apply to everything.
I'll tell you exactly what I learned. And Andy, thank you for saying that. I learned everything I needed to know by the best person out there. Bill Getty was the executive producer and creator of all Barbara Walters television shows.
Wow.
As well as her specials. And he taught me how to interview someone. He told me how to act in the world of television as talent and as producer.
Yeah.
And if I hadn't had that experience, I probably would not have wound up with 14 consecutive years on television.
Incredible. Wow. So, given all that we're talking about, the television shows, the different events that you're doing, the level of events, all of this stuff, I know we talked about fear. Do you feel, what about some kind of a pressure? Like, how do you walk into let me just say this. I've done some stuff with you, God, a few really big deals too, long ago. And I do remember you being very calm. And I remember obviously choosing a team, we might get into that later, but choosing the right team and managing it and the way you handled yourself. I'm thinking to myself, I'm looking around. I think one of them was in this guy's billionaire's airplane hangar. Remember that one?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, an airplane hangar. And I think it was later, I saw the video of the transformation, which was just like mind-boggling. Because when I walked in, with the entertainment, it was done. So what about that aspect of all of this?
What's really interesting is you have touched on 2 topics with me just right now, which is something I newly found out about myself, which I want to go talk about for a second. I do Soul Cycle. So it's this indoor spin class. I do it like 4 times, 5 times a week in the mornings. And I was taking this class, and there was sort of this mantra and this inspirational ride. And he got to the end, the instructor, and said, we need to face what's, challenging to us in our lives. What are your fears? I left that class, which is coming up right now. My 2 fears in my life, I didn't even know, were death, which we talked about, and fear of failure.
Okay.
And we're talking about this because, the show wasn't a failure, you said.
Right.
The first show. We talked about the other one, death. But I just think it's an interesting place because if we know what our fears are, we can move forward with trying to create more success. It's hard to do that.
What do you mean by that?
Because I've always pushed myself to be more successful.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that pushing myself to be successful was avoiding failure.
Okay.
And I know that seems...
Well, it's a different energy.
It's a very, very different energy. And as you do have more success, the failure is greater. And the greater the failure is, the more worry it is. Not for success, but failure.
Do you know what's interesting? So while I'm here in LA, I met an actress. I mean, she's fairly successful. And she was talking about how in this whole world, and I see the connection between the two, that these actors and actresses at this high level, and we can choose any industry, right? That pressure they feel to maintain. And even when they have a successful run of something and then the in between, she says it's like they're a mess. It's really hard to deal with that, what you're talking about.
It is. And you are closely looked at by your peers, by those that want to be where you are or had been where you are. And you're in the spotlight at all times. We're
talking a real scrutiny here, right?
It's really brutal. It really is. And, having and going back to the longevity of me being on TV, because I've done that first show and I've done multiple shows since. And then my contract had ended, I'd say about maybe 2 years ago. So I've had this break of 19, 20 months of not being on camera.
Okay.
The first 6 months was like, oh, this is really wonderful. Then the second half of that year, I was like, what do I do now? I mean, I've got plenty of business to worry about, but
is there some insecurity with that saying,
yes,
oh my God,
it's
okay,
the
that's
fear.
what we're talking about.
We're going back to the fear. So
right.
now I'm like, people started to judge me based upon not being on television again.
Even after all that history.
For the love of God, I've been on for a long... Can I get a break?
Right.
Now I'm going back into it, and I've been given offers and been given opportunities. And it was funny. I was just at a very big network meeting 2 days ago, and I'm sitting in the meeting. I'm thinking, I don't know if I want to work that hard again.
Yeah, I was wondering when you were going to say that.
I literally was thinking. I mean, they're offering me this opportunity, and at the same time, I'm thinking, but wait a minute, I want to be home with my daughter.
Yeah,
I don't want to be working 15 hours a day.
Yeah,
but I want to do it because I love doing it.
Well,
it's crazy.
Here's an interesting thing about that too. I know that, and I feel like this is related to everything. We feel the pressure then to say yes, right? Or to take something in some certain manner. Then there's the courage and the risk to say, you know what? I'm going to do it my way. I'm going to try. Maybe they'll say no, but these are my terms. This is how I'm going to do it.
It's interesting you bring that up also, because the last show I did on television was the least favorite show I ever did.
Oh, yeah.
It was. And it was because it was generated by the network that wanted false fabricated drama. And I didn't go on television to do that.
Yeah.
I'm an expert. I'm not an actor.
Right.
I'm not someone looking to make a name for myself by throwing tables over and yelling at people.
Yeah.
Just not me. So when that happened, that last 2 seasons of the television, I didn't like.
Well, and from what I understand, the one that you're about to do, or is it already out, David Tutera Celebrations?
That's the one I'm talking about, was the last.
Oh, that was
run.
The last one. Okay. Wow, interesting. So are you able to talk about what you might be doing next?
I want to go back to what I was doing that I loved. And when I had my third show, it was called My Fair Wedding.
Yes.
My Fair Wedding was really what I loved to do. It was about me bringing heart, bringing compassion, making people's dreams come true, which seems to be over the past 8 years what people in the industry of television don't want to provide to viewers. I think it's starting to change. The landscape of our country has certainly changed. And I think that TV is about to do a little bit of that as well. Not a lot. So if I'm going to do a television show again, which I would like to, it needs to be something that's going to make the viewer feel good, the recipient of the celebration feel amazing, and I want to take that journey with them.
Oh, I love that. Right. And it's all genuine.
Absolutely. No fabricated, fake, scripted reality.
And if it's genuine for those in the show, that again, not fabricated, it's the real thing, we watching it are going to be touched.
Absolutely. My Fair Wedding was a massive success.
Yeah.
Rating-wise,
I watched several episodes. It was fun. I thought it was really a blast.
For me, it was incredibly gratifying. And at the time when that show I was shooting, it came at a very important part of my life. So I needed it just as much as the viewers needed it.
Gotcha. Right. I also want to ask, coming back to you actually designing events, weddings, events, let's stick with weddings. I'd love to know your process, if you don't mind taking me through that.
Sure.
From the very beginning with the client through the end.
Well, it's different now. I mean, different as opposed to when I started. I meet them typically I'm always meeting them as the planner. My philosophy is that you hire me as the planner first, and if you want to hire me as your designer second, it's a great combination. You're not required to do that. 99.9% of all my clients hire me as a planner and designer. When I'm getting a phone call to meet them for the first time or talk to them for the first time, it's always about planning. And because if you think about it, a consumer who's planning their wedding, they need the planner first before they need the designer.
Makes sense.
So I'm their planner first, and I don't force the design on them. As I get to know them, once contracted as their planner, then I get to know who they are, what they're looking for, or they may not know, and I can help guide them. A couple of the first things they need to do, obviously, is find their venue, some of the key vendors, which are typically entertainment and photography and videographer, because those book quickly. And then design comes sort of, secondary. And then I kind of come in and I know so much more about them than they know about themselves when it comes to design and style, that I can then present them something that's incredibly personalized and custom.
Are there some general ways, techniques in a sense that you use in order to get to know them and get this information?
I spend a lot of time with my clients. It feels like I'm spending time with a friend. An example, I just got a job from a client that's living in London, having their wedding in Los Angeles. And when she comes in, I go to her home, I pick her up, we get in the car, we go pick up coffee together, then we go and do our meetings or we were scouting venues, and we spent a lot of time in the car or wherever we may be talking about other things besides her wedding. We as planners or vendors in any capacity should really become their friends. I think everyone is so quick now and rushing to get so much accomplished with other clients that there's a lack of communication and a lack of personality. So that's something I've always done really well, is communicate, listen, and show that I have a sincere passion for their celebration. Again, one of my philosophies also is we don't have to love our client. We have to love what we do for a client. That's what's most important.
But do you ever have clients who you feel you're just not going to be able to be yourself with and you won't work with? I mean, does that happen?
Somehow I exude an energy that if that is the case, I don't get hired. I must give off that energy to a client. Like, I know the type of client that hires me. I 100% know exactly if I'll be hired or not. If it's outside my box, and not meaning what I'm able to do or produce or design in the personality, they're going to hire somebody else. I know exactly who they'll hire.
Can you tell me a story or two of some of your more favorite weddings that you personally were just so artistically, let's say, excited by?
Well, I just got married 7 months ago. And
I was going to get to that. I read a little bit about
crazy.
It sounds like it.
It was pretty amazing. And it was one of the most memorable experiences, not because it was our wedding. It was because of how we chose to do the wedding. It was emotional. It was dramatic. It had an astronomical amount of entertainment. And we wanted it to be grand over the top, yet intimate. And we accomplished all of that. We provided the emotion of the two of us, well, three of us, our daughter. And it was just a beautiful, beautiful day. But memorable moments for me or memorable weddings are the weddings, to be quite honest, that I connect with the client. It really is. I mean, I don't even know how many weddings in my career I've done. However, my daughter's godmother is a client of mine who's now a best friend. One of my very good best friends is a client that I married. I was the officiant for their wedding. They live here in Los Angeles. And I've got a couple other clients that are very much in our inner circle of friends, which is very small. I can't say that that's going to always be the case, but I stay connected to them after it's over.
Yeah. My experience too, doing a gazillion of these weddings, is the couple really does drive it, don't they?
They should drive it. And when they don't, I help them.
How? Can you give examples?
Sometimes there'll be one of the two. may not be equally invested in the planning of it. I'm doing a wedding coming up in a couple weeks. This wedding is completely driven by the groom.
That's interesting, isn't it?
Completely driven, yes.
Yeah.
It is his first wedding and it's her second. And I don't think that's the reason for it, but some of the answers I really do need to get from the bride. And it goes strictly through the groom. And he's not a control freak. He's just more emotionally connected to the celebration. So I have now focused my energy about 6 months ago on the bride to let her kind of feel comfortable enough to be pulled through the process. And now, we're just a couple weeks out, she's there. Maybe she couldn't do it the whole way, but she's there now. They're equally walking down the aisle emotionally at the same time.
Yeah. I love that. I mean, it's very powerful. I'd also like to know, you have built an enormous business, right? I mean, obviously, to be able to do all that you do, from the product lines to the TV, your design, I mean, on and on and on and on. How about the business aspect of it? How do you feel that you were able to figure this stuff out? Because I'm talking about the classic mix, right? Or the almost the battle between art and business and mixing the two, right? This has been going on for thousands of years. How do you view that part of it?
I think most people don't realize what we do. Being in the business of events is a lot of work. But the balance for me is being able to delegate, but yet control the outcome to a place that you know what's happening. I'm not saying I'm going to forecast tomorrow the answer is going to be yes or no, and this is how much it's going to sell.
Right.
But I'm talking now the brand. But you have to stay on top of everyone that's part of the equation. So, for example, my brand requires, and I'm talking products and retail and manufacturers, I deal with all of them. I'm producing a product line. I'm working directly with the manufacturer. I'm designing the line. It's getting approved. It's then taking meetings with the retailers, which is typically the senior buyer at a retail chain. And then having to then, once it gets picked up, stay connected to the manufacturer and the retailers to get it on the shelves and have it successfully sell. That's just one category. And I have multiple categories. So it is staying incredibly focused, incredibly organized, because that's not just my only business. It is, though, however, financially rewarding, but you really have to make sure that everything that's being promised and done happens.
So do you have any kind of tips, advice on how to multitask and manage so much at the same time?
I wish I had a blueprint for that answer. I think that you either are gifted with the ability to multitask or you're not.
And compartmentalize, right?
And I've seen many people take classes, get coached, try to figure it out. I don't know. I've always been that way since a kid. And I also have an incredible memory and the ability to remind myself I make multiple lists and I am constantly checking, what requires more time. And at the end of the day, I do a to-do list at the end of the night or end of my workday. And that to-do list is what I didn't get done that day that carries over to the next day. What I also do is I make sure that what is accomplished first is what is financially going to make the most money.
Financially?
Yes.
Interesting. I mean, it makes sense, but hard to do.
We tend to do what's easiest on our list because you feel like you're accomplishing something. We tend to leave the most important things, which are the hardest, last. And we can't do that. I mean, at the end of the day, we're sitting talking about work, and work equates to money, and money creates success, and success creates time. And it's that big old pyramid. When I leave you today, I'm going to go back to my office and work on a very difficult project, which is a very important financial project.
So we just talked about balancing or handling the business. What about balancing your personal life with your business life? Do you feel you have balance?
I have really great balance now. I can't say I could have said that 5 years ago. And I think that comes to who and what your personal life is. As I've gotten older, I've lessened my circle of friends out of choice. I have also learned by being successful in television and having a success in my career, the friends who you think are your friends are not your friends.
Right. You don't know why they're trying to get close to you.
Yes. And to be honest, even the past 6 months, there has been a complete revision of, and I say my husband and I's life. I mean, we've decided that there are people that just, I hate to say it any other way, are not worthy of our friendship. And we've been really good about
And time.
Yeah, this is something my mom taught me. My mom would always make a list. She made 2 lists. I love this story. Simple list, piece of paper on her refrigerator. List A was the list in the order of the people she wanted to see. And then as she saw them, you would get dropped onto the second B list, which was because she already saw them, and it wound up transferring over. So then as I got older, and I just realized this recently, is that if you think about this, anyone listening to this, we tend to make time, make dates, and see people that are the loudest friends or loudest people in our life that need us and want us. And then we always give them that time because they just keep annoying us for the time. However, that list of people winds up typically being a B-list person. I know this sounds tragic to say A-list versus B. However, the people that should be on our A-list, who mean the most to us, our closest emotional friends and family, get pushed to the B list because they're not loud and they're not pushing for our time. So instead of having those 2 lists, I have one list and the other list doesn't exist anymore.
It's so interesting you're bringing this up because it's only recently that, I've been thinking about this too sometimes, and sometimes I'm chasing after certain friends, but then I'm not really emotionally getting what I need, And so I've been also thinking recently, in a sense, I've been narrowing it down a bit to the people where we really have a deep connection, because there isn't a whole lot of time also in addition. But I like what you're saying because you're talking about keeping yourself nurtured is what you're talking about.
It is keeping yourself nurtured, keeping my family nurtured. We had a party last weekend at our house, and Joey and I sat and we were like, who are we going to invite? And we had our typical friends that we were going to invite. And I said, you know what? I'm not inviting these people. And one specifically who's in the industry, I said, I'm not inviting her. We get nothing in return. It's always how much. It's all about her. It's all about what she does. It's all about her success. And I'm not trying to compete. I'm trying to have a friend.
Yeah. Yeah, I get it. Also, how are you keeping yourself creatively inspired? I'm not asking, what inspires you, but I'm imagining that you probably set aside time and do certain activities to allow this creativity to keep. No. What do you mean?
I think people think that I get inspired by, the generic answer is, of course, I'm inspired by the life I see. The things that are around me inspire me. It's not true. What I do is I think it's just, I can sit with someone and tap into the world of creativity that I don't even know I have sometimes. I always would say that I can envision a look of an event in my head in a black space if you close your eyes, and see the vision and then create it. And then when we get to the final outcome, open my eyes at an event and it's the exact same thing I envisioned when I first thought about it.
Yeah.
And it could be 2 years prior to the event. I don't have a go-to, it's the theater or
travel or whatever.
Traveling or walking the beach or climbing a mountain. No.
Yeah.
I don't know where it comes from to be half the time.
Well, what do you love to do just for fun? Setting aside all of this business, what do you do when you want to unwind?
Honestly, I love to be home. I travel so much. If I told you how much I travel, we have 2 locations. We have a house on the East Coast and the West Coast, and both of them are like sanctuaries. It feels like a resort when you're at either of the 2, and you never need to leave. That to me, that is success. To be able to feel comfortable staying home and doing nothing.
Yeah, I love that. And I was going to ask you how you define success, and that's it for you.
Success is quiet, family, and peace.
I like that. I think we all could use more of that. I also want to ask you, how have you seen the industry change, right? We've been doing this a long time. We've covered some of this. I'm curious how you see that it's changed and where you think it's going.
I have a lot to say on this. I don't know if it's going to be the good of the answer, but when I got in the business, I didn't even know it was a business. When I got into the business in 1986, there really was no track or courses, or there was the beginning of associations that you can join.
Yeah. Even the concept of planners was kind of new back then.
If you said you were a wedding planner or you did events, they thought you promoted events and clubs. They didn't really understand what you did. It's a different world today. I mean, the problem with, I think today, and I say this in the kindest of ways, is that everybody now wants to be in it because it's kind of the hot thing.
It's like a glamorous thing too, right?
And nobody wants to work as hard as we've all had to work. And I also feel that there are less talented people in the business And I don't mean that in a negative way. I just think that everyone assumes it's an easy business to get into, and they're not willing to put the work into it to receive back the knowledge that they need to have to make the events that much more successful. Too many people in too many parts of the industry. There's too many photographers, there's too many bands, there's too many designers, there's too many planners, there's too many of everything. So it's an oversaturated industry of vendors. There's not enough consumer volume for the amount of people that are professionals, or I put quotes around that. And what that's done is it has lessened the integrity and quality of the work. And it has also created such a big competitive nature that people are giving away their product for less, causing those that are successful and who are talented to wind up going out of business because the client will get it cheaper from someone else.
You're bringing up something really important, which is a big issue. I've been talking with a lot of people recently about this personally, is the value of what we have to offer and getting the price for that value. And there seems to be, I also see a change in the business. And at first I thought, oh, is it just in my area? Is it just my company? My God, is it something I'm doing? And then as I talk to people, and like you, this is pervasive. And I don't yet know the exact answer because I don't want to lower my prices. I want people to understand my value. I have this attitude that, the way you put it out, you draw clients to you who appreciate that and want it. And yet what you're talking about is a challenge that still we're left to have to deal with.
Here's the problem. The problem is that our consumer is typically a one-time consumer. Mm-hmm. We're talking weddings.
Yeah.
So we're having a client. Let's not even get into the fact that they might get married a second or third time. That's not the point. If you've got a client coming in who's having a wedding, and they're going to meet with you or I, and they're going to want to hire us, so we give them a price, and we are worth the value of what we feel confident about, right? John,
yes.
That's not an issue.
Absolutely.
Then they go meet someone else, or they hear about another band or another wedding planner, and they get it for half the price. Why in the world would they hire us? Mm-hmm. Now, if it's a car that's being sold and you're going to go buy a car and that happens, you're going to have to get a new car in 5 years. You're going to think twice and you're going to spend more money the second time around. It doesn't exist in the world of weddings. And that's the issue. There's two people at fault here. The fault of the matter starts with the person that's newly in the business trying to compete and become more successful. The problem now is that the people who are successful and worthy of that price they're charging have now caved and lowered their prices to keep the business. So now the fear and success have become part of this formula. And those that do not know what they're doing and the fear of being in the business are trying to be confident by giving a less price. It's just, the whole thing's a mess.
But we have to urge people to really value their services,
Everyone's scared, though, of losing business. And what they're doing is losing more business because it's like acid that's spreading amongst the industry, but nobody wants to.
It's just eroding its own business. Yeah. Well, I want to take a moment personally, thank you right now, because you brought me in on some amazing events earlier in my career. There was this one, if you remember, in Orlando at Disney. And it was big. I mean, it was the Dream Team also that you had partnered with and Disney. And I don't know.
Just talking about this.
You were?
Literally 2 days ago.
Really?
It was the first and to this day only wedding, right, that took place in front of Magic Kingdom Castle in Orlando.
I didn't know that it was the only one. I know it was the first one.
On Valentine's Day. Remember?
Yeah. Well, you know what you probably don't know? Because I had called you and I said, can I call the Disney people? Because I just had, well, I haven't changed. I'll go for anything. I have no fear either. So I'm thinking to myself, even though it's all of that, it's like, you know what? I got some other ideas. I don't get it. I think this could be a lot better. So, in terms of what they were doing. And so I talked to you. You said, yeah, it's cool. Go ahead and give them a call. I talked to Brides Magazine, the editor-in-chief. Was like, yeah, you can call. I wanted to be safe. And I had this conference call with the producers there. And I asked them a lot of questions. And I know at first, they're like, what is this kid doing? And I found out what their goals and objectives were, which was to market this whole new program, promote it. There was tons of press there, if you remember.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I've seen press, but not like that. From a musical perspective, I designed a whole different thing from that perspective. And we were in the middle of the night working on all of this with the production team and my team and everything like that. It was the first time that I had that approach, and that changed my career and my life.
Wow.
So I thank you for putting me in that position. Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's great.
That was wonderful. So before we go, I would love to know the best way to find out about you. Again, I know what we didn't have a lot of time to get into is the product lines. I mean, it includes bridal gowns, bridal jewelry, accessories, embellishments, shoes, invitations, so much more. You've also got this wonderful, I researched, wonderful event planning symposium that I recommend to everybody. What is the best couple of ways for people to get more information?
I mean, the easiest way to follow anything that we're doing is through social media. We have a very big following on Facebook and Instagram. But the website, davidtutera.com, will take you to the symposium information. And you'll also, when going to the David Tutera site, learn about the various product lines and learn about how to sort of, build your business. And we just launched last Wednesday. It's called Dear David on Facebook. And people have from all over the world send questions. And on video, I respond with information to them, which has been really helpful. And it's been fun. It's been actually really great to hear from people all over the world.
That's great. Are there any particular social medias handles you want to mention?
No, I mean, it's all David Tutera. It's all Instagram, Pinterest, Facebook.
And we'll have all of this in the show notes too. Well, God, David, this has been a blast. Man, it's so good to see you again.
Easy to talk to you.
It's been a blast.
Yeah,
it's incredible.
You.
Yeah, I'm inspired.
Good. That's my goal.
All right. Thanks.
This has been The Wedding Biz with Andy Kushner. You can find us at theweddingbiz.com and on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Wedding Biz Show.
I gave you my heart.
If you want to support the show, we'd be grateful if you shared it with colleagues, friends, and family. We'd also appreciate your review wherever you listen to podcasts. Thanks for listening.
It'll never shatter, no matter what we go through. I gave my heart to you. I gave you my heart on a silver platter, 'cause you made my